The marketplace was quiet. Too quiet for a slave auction. Rain tapped softly on metal roofs as low voices whispered in the shadows. Under a crooked shelter of rusted beams, cages lined the walls, each holding someone broken, beaten, or forgotten. But in the center, under a flickering light, stood a raised platform, and on that platform knelt a girl. Chained, silent, and still. She wasn't large, or strong, or flashy like the others. Her skin was pale, almost glowing under the cold light. Her long hair hung like strands of silver dust, tangled and dull. She didn't beg, she didn't cry, she didn't speak. Some aliens laughed as they walked by. "She's just a personal slave," one of them hissed. "Not even good for work," another chuckled. The auctioneer, a fat green trader with oily skin, slapped her shoulder. "She's obedient, quiet, and well-trained," he grinned. "But we'll start the bid low, just to clear inventory." Nobody raised a hand. The crowd had no interest in a girl who didn't even lift her head. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable. A few aliens turned away, ready to leave. Then, a figure stepped out from the shadows. He was tall, wearing a dark coat with the hood pulled low. The rain stopped, as if holding its breath. He walked slowly toward the auction block. Every step echoed on the wet stone floor. Some turned to look, others backed away. Humans were rare in this sector, and most were not welcome. But this one didn't flinch. Didn't speak, didn't threaten. He just stood in front of the girl, and for a long moment, he said nothing. Then he asked, softly but clearly, "Does she'll have a name?" The auctioneer blinked, then laughed hard. "A name? She's a slave human, not a guest. No one ever asked," he added with a smirk. The human's eyes didn't move from the girl. "How much?" he asked. The trader grinned, showing sharp teeth. 50 credits cheap, eh?" The human reached into his coat and pulled out a small pouch. He tossed it onto the table, landed with a clink. "That's 100, he said. "Double." The trader stared, then snatched the pouch, eyes wide. "You serious?" "I'm taking her," the human said quietly. "Now." No one said a word as the human walked up to the girl. She still hadn't looked up, hadn't moved. But when he gently touched the chain at her wrist, she flinched just a tiny motion. His hand paused, then he unlocked the shackle. She didn't run, didn't cry, didn't collapse. She just sat there, confused. He took off his coat and draped it over her shoulders. "You're safe now," he said. Not expecting a reply, she slowly raised her head. Her eyes met his deep, clear. Not broken like everyone thought. For a second, he saw something there. Something old, something proud. Like a buried flame under ash. Then she looked down again. As if afraid she showed too much, the human helped her stand. And she followed him without a word. The crowd parted as they left, no one daring to stop them. The rain returned, falling gently, as if the sky had seen enough, behind them. The auctioneer watched the girl disappear into the darkness. He scratched his head and muttered, "Strange human." But what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that they had just sold a soul they couldn't understand. A girl whose story hadn't ended, it had only just begun, and the man who took her. He didn't save her because she was a slave. He saved her because when no one else saw anything, he saw someone. The ship hummed softly as it drifted through the stars. Inside, the lights were dim, warm, and quiet. The girl sat on a padded bench near the back of the cargo bay. She still wore the human's coat, wrapping it tight around herself like armor. The human, his name was Luke, checked the ship's systems from the cockpit. He didn't try to talk to her. Not yet. She hadn't spoken a word since they left the market. She hadn't even asked where they were going. Luke brought her food, soft bread, water, and something warm, but she didn't touch it. He left it near her and walked away. Giving her space, she stared at the food like it might explode. Then slowly, she took a bite. Her hands trembled, but she kept eating. One small piece at a time. Luke watched from a distance, saying nothing. He didn't want to scare her. He didn't want to rush her. He just wanted her to know she was safe. Hours passed, maybe days. She stayed in the same corner of the ship, always quiet. She slept lightly. Her body tense, waking up at the smallest sound. Sometimes she sat curled up, whispering in a language he didn't know. One night, Luke heard a scream. He ran to the cargo bay, heart racing. She was thrashing in her sleep, her eyes squeezed shut. "No, no more, please," she cried. Luke knelt beside her and gently touched her shoulder. "It's okay," he said. "You're safe." She woke up with a gasp and backed into the corner. Her eyes were wide with fear, but when she saw it was him, her breathing slowed. He sat across from her, not too close, not too far. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly. "You're free now." She looked at him like she didn't understand the word, like it had no meaning. Luke sighed and opened a panel on the wall. Inside was a small medkit and a scanner. He looked at her and asked, "Can I check your collar?" She hesitated, then nodded slowly. He gently brushed her hair aside and scanned the base of her neck. A blinking red light appeared on the screen. Control chip, active and dangerous. Luke took out a tool. "Hand steady. This might sting," he warned. It took a few minutes, but finally, with a soft beep, the chip powered down. He dropped it into a small case and locked it. "There," he said. "It's gone." She reached up and touched the back of her neck for the first time. Her face changed confusion, relief, and something else. Tears filled her eyes, and her lips moved. "Thank you," she whispered. Luke smiled gently. "You're welcome." The next day, she started moving around the ship. Not much, just small steps here and there. She watched him as he worked. Curious but cautious, she still didn't speak. But her eyes were brighter, more alert. He showed her how to heat food, how to open doors, how to call him if she needed help. She nodded each time, but said nothing. Still, it was progress. One morning, Luke walked into the common room and found her standing near the window. She was watching the stars. Eyes wide. "They're beautiful," he said. She didn't respond, but she didn't walk away either. She stood there for a long time, watching. Later, when she thought he wasn't looking, she started humming. The sound was soft, strange, almost like a song from another world. Luke didn't interrupt, he just listened. That night, while cleaning the sleeping quarters, he found something strange. A small silver device, hidden deep inside a pocket of her coat. It wasn't alien tech. It was ancient human design. But encrypted, he scanned it, and the result made him pause. It was a memory storage unit, but protected by biological lockers. Why would a slave have something so rare, so advanced? And who gave it to her? He didn't ask, not yet, but the mystery around her was growing. One evening, as he handed her a warm drink, he asked gently, "Do you have a name?" She looked at him, surprised, then looked away again. "I don't remember," she said. Barely a whisper. Luke nodded. "That's okay," he said. "We'll figure it out." He didn't press her for more, but deep down, he knew this girl wasn't just a random slave. She had history. She had secrets, and whatever had been done to her, someone had tried very hard to erase everything she once was, but they failed because little by little, she was starting to come back to life. The girl stood in front of the mirror, staring at her own reflection. Her face looked tired, thin, but her eyes were slowly changing. They weren't dead anymore. They had light in them now, a soft flicker, like a candle fighting against the wind. Luke had given her new clothes, plain but clean. She wore them carefully, like she wasn't sure she deserved them. Every time she looked around the ship, she acted like she expected to be yelled at. But Luke never raised his voice, not even once. He treated her like a person, not a tool, not a thing, not property. and because of that, something inside her had started to shift. She began asking questions, just small ones. What does this button do? What's that smell? Where are we going? Luke answered every time, with patience and kindness. He didn't ask about her past, not directly, but he was watching, not with fear, but with curiosity. One day, while checking her vitals with a medical scanner, he paused. The scanner was picking up strange signals from under her skin. They weren't normal. She had subdermal implantstini, hidden devices woven into her nerves and spine. Luke frowned and pulled up old records. The implants weren't from any known slave system. They were far more advanced, human tech, but old, almost ancient. And highly restricted. He ran a deeper scan, and what he found made him sit down in shock. There were coded symbols buried in her DNA markers, used for identification. Not common, not random. Royal markers. His breath caught. She wasn't just a victim. She was someone important. When she walked into the medbay and saw his expression, she froze. What's wrong? She asked softly. Luke hesitated, then turned the screen toward her. These symbols in your blood, he said, they mean something. She stepped closer. Staring at the display, her hands trembled. I don't know what that is, she whispered, but her voice didn't sound certain. Luke looked at her gently. You were someone before they took you, he said. They tried to erase that, but it's still inside you. She didn't speak. Instead, she turned and left the room in silence. He let her go. He knew she needed time. That night, she sat alone in the engine bay, staring at the silver device she had hidden from him. Her fingers brushed its smooth surface. Then she pressed it to the skin of her palm. The device glowed softly, and a projection flickered in the air. A woman appeared tall, with the same silver hair and proud eyes. She was dressed in royal garments, standing beside a throne. Message to Slarianne. The woman's voice said, If you're seeing this, then the house has fallen. The girl gasped. The name Slarianne echoed in her mind. Like thunder. That was her name. That was who she was. Memories came flooding back, painful and bright. The halls of crystal, the songs of the court, her mother's voice, and then fire. Betrayal, chains, darkness. She covered her mouth and wept silently. Luke found her there hours later, her head resting against the wall. He didn't speak. He just sat beside her. Finally, she looked at him with red eyes and said, My name is Slarianne, he nodded. I know, he said quietly. She took a breath, shaky but strong. I was a daughter of the matriarch. They said I was dead. They made me into something else. Luke looked into her eyes. You're not a slave anymore, he said. You never were. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then she leaned against him, not as a broken thing, but as someone beginning to rebuild. He didn't see a royal heir. He didn't see a weapon. He saw a girl who had survived the impossible and who now had a choice. The galaxy believed she was gone, but she was here, alive, and the truth beneath her skin was starting to rise. The city of Velmera Prime looked peaceful from orbit. Its glowing towers reached into the clouds, and the spaceport lights blinked like stars. But beneath the beauty, danger waited. Luke didn't trust the place, but they needed supplies, and Slarianne, now remembering more of herself, said she wanted to walk freely. Just once, they wore plain clothes. Nothing fancy, nothing that showed her past. Slarianne tied her silver hair back, hiding it under a hood. She looked like any traveler now. But her eyes, calm and sharp, carried stories no one could read. The marketplace buzzed with voices and scent and color. Aliens of all shapes passed by, some friendly, some not. Luke stayed close, but let her lead. She stopped at a small vendor. Touching the soft fabric of a scarf, I used to wear something like this, she whispered, Almost to herself, an old alien merchant nearby dropped his cup. He stared at her, his hands shaking. Then he whispered, "No. It can't be." Slarianne turned to him, confused. He stepped back quickly, eyes wide, her face. "That face," he muttered, then ran into the crowd, disappearing. Luke caught her arm gently. "We should go," he said, but it was already too late. Across the square, two armored aliens stepped into view. They didn't carry trade goods, only weapons. One of them locked eyes with Slarianne, then spoke into his comm. "She's alive," he said. "Target confirmed." Luke grabbed her hand and they ran through alleyways and narrow lanes. Behind them, footsteps thundered. Blaster fire cracked the air, hitting walls, sending sparks flying. They ducked behind a food stall as the chase grew louder. Slarianne was breathing hard, not from fear, but from memory. "They were the ones," she said. "The ones who took me." Luke looked at her. "Are you sure?" She nodded, eyes burning. "They served the council," she said. "They called it peace, but they destroyed my people." More guards were coming now, blocking exits. Luke checked his wristpad, pulling up the ship's recall command. "It'll take 2 minutes to power up," he said. "That's all we've got." Slarianne stood, then pulled back her hood. Her silver hair shone under the lights. Gasps rippled through the crowd. One of the guards froze, whispering to the others, "That's the matriarch's daughter. She's supposed to be dead." But she wasn't dead. She was standing tall, eyes blazing. "I am Slarianne of House Veles," she shouted, "and I remember everything." Luke pulled her behind a wall as more blaster shots rained down. They moved fast, dodging through shadows. One of the guards jumped in front of them. Luke slammed him to the ground with one punch. Slarianne kicked his weapon away, then kept running. They reached the edge of the docks, where the ship's lights flashed. 30 seconds, Luke said, tapping his wrist. "Cover me." Slarianne stood between him and the oncoming enemies. She wasn't afraid anymore. The guards hesitated, some even lowered their weapons. One of them, older than the rest, stepped forward. "You were just a child when we burned your world," he said. "You weren't meant to live, and—" "Yet I did," she replied. "And now I remember who I am." The ramp lowered behind them. Luke grabbed her hand again. "Time to go," he said. They sprinted aboard, and the ship lifted off just as blaster fire ripped through the air. But they were too late. The ship soared into the sky, engines roaring, safe, for now, inside. Slarianne sat down, silent. Luke looked at her. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "Yes," she said, "but now they know I'm alive." He nodded. "They'll come after you," he said. She looked up, calm and steady. "Then let them," she said. "I've hidden long enough." Luke placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll face them together." For the first time, she smiled, not a sad smile, not a broken one, but a real smile. She was no longer just a survivor. She was becoming a fighter. Enemies remembered her face now, and soon the whole galaxy would remember her name. The ship floated in silence between the stars. Slarianne sat in the co-pilot's seat, her hands folded in her lap. Luke was at the controls, eyes focused ahead, but his mind was on her. He could feel it. Something had changed in her since Velmara Prime. She was remembering more, and with those memories came strength. Later, as they sat in the small galley, she held the silver device she had hidden for so long. It pulsed softly in her palm, waiting. "This holds everything," she whispered. "My memories, my truth, my family's history." Luke leaned forward. "Can we unlock it?" She nodded, but only in the right place. "There's a world far from the trade routes," she continued. "A forgotten archive built by my people before the fall, if it still exists. It will know me." Luke didn't ask questions. He trusted her. "Set the course," he said. "We'll go." The planet was called Nethera Ix. It had no cities, no stations. Just ruins hidden beneath wild forests and mountains. The old nav charts didn't even show its name anymore, but Slarian remembered. Because it was built to remember her, they landed near the base of a crumbling stone temple. Vines wrapped around the spires, and the air smelled of moss and age. As they stepped inside, motion sensors flickered to life, lights blinked, scanners activated, and the ground hummed under their feet. The hallway was lined with symbols carved in silver, faded with time. Slarian's fingers traced them as she walked. "This is my mother's writing," she said softly. She recorded everything before the war. At the center of the temple was a sealed door with no handle. It's just a small round slot, perfectly shaped for the silver device. Slarian placed it in the slot, and the door opened with a hiss. Inside was a glowing sphere floating in the air, a memory correntient, powerful, untouched by time. The room lit up, scanning her body with a blue light. Then a voice spoke, deep and clear. "Welcome." Slarian of House Veles. Tears filled her eyes as the sphere opened. Images filled the room, her mother, her home, her people, moments frozen in time, alive again. Luke stood beside her, silent, watching history return. Then came the darker memories. Footage of alien diplomats sitting at her family's table, smiling, then turning, betraying, destroying the warships, the fire, the chains. Slarian flinched, but she did not look away. "They erased my bloodline," she said, voice steady. "They took our stars, our voices, our names. But they couldn't." "Take this," she said, pointing to the core. "This proves who I am." The AI voice spoke again. "This archive has waited for your return. It contains the final testament of the matriarch." A final image appeared, her mother, standing, proud despite the fear in her eyes. "My daughter," the message began. "If you see this, then you have survived. You are the last spark of our people. Do not hide, live, speak, love, and remember who you are." Slarian fell to her knees, her hands covering her face. Luke knelt beside her. Resting a hand on her shoulder, she didn't push him away. Instead, she leaned into him, letting herself cry not from fear, but from release. They spent the night in the temple, surrounded by silent memories. In the morning, Slarian stood tall beneath the rising light. Her voice was calm and strong. "I don't want revenge," she said. "I want to live, and I want others like me to live too." Luke nodded. "Then we'll help them," before they left. Slarian made one change to the archive. She linked it to the stars, sent out fragments of her story across the galaxy, encrypted messages carrying her name, her face, her truth. "If others are out there," she said, "they'll hear me." As the ship lifted off, the temple closed behind them. But the message had already begun to travel across systems and empires, across silent worlds and forgotten screens. Some would see it and deny it. Others would fear it. But there would be a few, maybe only a few, who would believe. And that would be enough. Because Slarian wasn't a slave. She wasn't a lost girl. She was the voice of a broken people. And now, the galaxy would start to remember. Asterisk, the galaxy didn't stay quiet for long. It never did. The message from Nathara X had spread farther than Slarian expected. Some thought it was fake. Some laughed. Some feared. But others, quiet voices in the dark, began to whisper her name with hope. And in the shadows, those who once ruled, through fear, felt the ripple, the Syndicate Council, a secret power behind many governments. Met in silence, the girl lives, one alien said, voice shaking. She remembers, another growled. She is calling the broken to rise, a third snapped. She must be silenced. Now, that same night, Luke's ship was tracked. A stealth drone planted by unknown hands followed them across 2 systems. And when they landed on the moon station of Corvin's Hollow for supplies, the trap was sprung. It began quietly, a soft click beneath their landing gear, a ripple in the air near the hangar doors, then explosions, fire, smoke, and attackers in black armor swarming in from every angle. Luke pulled Slarian behind. A crate blasters flying from his belt into his hands. He fired back fast, moving with calm speed. "Get to the ship," he shouted. Slarian grabbed a weapon, eyes burning bright. "I'm not running," she said. Not this time. They fought side by side, blaster fire lighting the metal walls. But the attackers weren't here to kill them. Not yet. They were trying to take her alive, to drag her back into silence. One of the masked soldiers shouted into a comm, "We have her. Prepare extraction." Slarian turned, eyes locked on him, and for the first time she screamed, not in fear, but in fury. "No one owns me anymore." She charged forward, her movements quick and sharp, with the blaster in one hand and fire in her blood. She disarmed the guard and knocked him out cold. The others hesitated, surprised by her strength. Luke used the moment to grab a shock grenade. He tossed it into the center of the group. It exploded with a flash of white light, dropping several to the ground. Together, they ran for the ship. The hull was scarred, but it held strong. Luke fired up the engines. Slarian manned the turret above, eyes sharp, hands steady. They blasted their way into the sky, leaving smoke and wreckage behind. But inside, she didn't celebrate. She sat in silence, breathing hard. Luke looked back at her, his voice soft. "You okay?" Slarian shook her head. "They want to cage me again," she said, "to erase me just like before." Luke stepped close, kneeling beside her. "They failed once," he said. "They'll fail again." Her hands gripped the edge of the seat. "I can't just keep running," she said. "There are others still in chains. Others like me, forgotten, beaten, broken. I have to do something." Luke nodded slowly. "Then let's hit back," he said. "Let's show them what happens when they try to chain someone who remembers freedom." She looked at him, a spark lighting in her chest. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were becoming something more. That night, Slarian stood in front of the ship's console. She opened a secure channel, encrypted with codes hidden in her bloodline. She broadcast one message, not to governments or leaders, but to those who were still in the dark. "To all those in chains," she said, voice clear and strong. "To those who were told they were nothing, I was one of you. They broke my body. They silenced my voice. But I remember now. I am Slarian of House Veles. I am free, and you can be too. Across the stars, in dark cells and hidden camps." Screens flickered to life. Eyes widened. Hearts stirred. A forgotten name returned like thunder in the night. On one mining world, an old alien slave whispered, "She lives on another moon." A young servant looked up from her work and smiled. "If she can fight, maybe I can too." Back aboard the ship, Luke watched her in silence. She wasn't the same girl he found in a cage. She was becoming a leader. Her chains were broken, not just the ones on her body, but the ones in her mind, her heart, her soul. Now she would help break the chains of others. One truth, one voice, one fire at a time. The ship glided above a familiar planet. Its surface was dusty, dry, and covered in rust-colored sands. Luke stood beside Slarian as they looked out the window. It was the same place where he had found her. The slave market, the stage, the chains, all of it began here. But now, things were different. Slarian wore no collar, no chains, no fear. She stood tall, dressed in a plain cloak, her silver hair loose and glowing in the sun. Luke had asked her twice if she was sure about coming back. Each time she simply nodded. "I want them to see what freedom looks like," she said. They landed outside the old city, the same dusty walkways winding into the market. People turned their heads as they passed. Some recognized Luke the Strange, human who once bought a broken girl for double the price. Others stared at Slarianne, trying to place her face. They reached the center of the square. The auction block was still there, wooden, cracked, and stained with history. Slarianne stepped up on it, the same place she had once knelt. But this time, she stood straight. She raised her voice. "Some of you remember me," she said. "I was brought here in silence, sold like a thing back then. I didn't know my name, but now I do." The crowd hushed, eyes wide. "I am Slarianne of House Veles," she continued. "I was born a daughter of peace, and made into a prisoner. But I will not live in shame." Whispers swept through the market like wind. "She was royalty," someone muttered. "That girl. She lived," another said. Traders backed away, unsure of what would happen next. Luke stepped beside her, not as a rescuer, but as her partner. He didn't speak, didn't interrupt. He just stood with her, proud and calm. Slarianne looked at the place where she had once been chained. Then she raised her hand and pressed a button on a small device. A hidden drone above the square came to life, broadcasting her image to nearby cities and systems. "This place sold people," she said. Her voice stronger now. It thrived on silence and pain, but no more, behind the crowd. A few guards shifted uncomfortably. One stepped forward and growled, "You don't belong here anymore." Luke moved slightly, but Slarianne raised her hand. "No," she said. "I do." She walked down from the stage and stopped in front of the guard. "You were here that day," she said. "I remember your face." The guard looked uneasy. "You were just a product," he muttered. Property. Slarianne's voice didn't rise. "And now, I am a wife," she said. "Not because someone claimed me, but because he saw me." She turned to the crowd. "Love is not ownership," she said. "Freedom is not given, it is taken back." Luke stepped forward now, gently taking her hand. "She wasn't a thing," he said. "She was never property." The two of them stood together. Side by side, the entire market looked on, unsure whether to cheer or flee. No one had ever come back like this, stronger, freer, louder. "Slari." Anne looked up at Luke, her voice soft. "I used to wonder if I would ever be anything more than a slave. But you never treated me like less." Luke smiled at her. "I didn't fall in love with a slave," he said. "I fell in love with you." They left the market without fear. No chains, no running, just quiet footsteps that echoed in the minds of everyone who watched them go. Later that night, back aboard their ship, Slarianne sat by the window. She watched the stars and thought of every girl still trapped, every boy still silenced. And she made herself a promise. "I won't stop," she whispered. "I will. Keep walking and speaking and fighting until no one is left in the dark." Luke wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "You won't be alone," he said. "Not now, not ever." They had no throne, no army, but they had each other. And that was more powerful than any title or crown, because she was not a slave. She was not someone's property. She was a woman who had chosen her path, and a man had chosen to walk it with her.